but one more session which I hope will be useful to you, kind of building and putting everything together in a variety of ways and giving you an opportunity to leave with one or more of 3 tangible products that you'll get out of the day. I always like to leave a workshop with some tangible products, so some time opportunity to do that. So today's in the program planning, we're going to work through 2 tools, and actually there's actually a 3rd tool which comes out of the 2nd tool, which I'll share. Hopefully you have the link to it, but I have another link. If you saw me here at lunch, I had planned to do this and realized I had updated my private copy of the PowerPoint, so not this one, so updated it. So kind of work off of 3 tools here. There's a checklist for creating and reviewing applications, which is from NDTAC. And then there's the South Carolina Title I Part D handbook, which is a really rich resource. Everybody has that both electronically and in print copies. And then we're also going to use the monitoring protocol, South Carolina's monitoring protocol. And so again, make this a real practical session to wrap up with. So, and I'm going to just spend a little bit of time. My time this afternoon is going to be mostly spent working with you and rotating through the tables, but a little bit of an introduction time. And the first one is I want to share the NDTAC tool on checklists for creating and reviewing applications. And you can see NDTAC did these tools. It says checklists for creating and reviewing applications. So they're both for State Department use as a tool to help a State Department make sure that they have all of the necessary components of an application, and then for LEA use to see about reviewing applications, and also State Departments in reviewing applications. But it's really to make sure that they have those parts. So just want to walk you through this tool. It will open in a Word document, just like the one we did before lunch. And parts of it look similar. I started with subpart 1 last time, so I'm going to actually scroll down. It does the same thing in that starting on page 2, it has subpart 1 checklist. I'm going to jump to subpart 2 first, but subpart 1, friends, I'll come right back to it, so I promise I won't. Just as a last name Z, I like to, when I taught elementary school, let's say we lined up in reverse alphabetical order much more frequently than Miss Andrews might have lined up in reverse alphabetical order. Us Z's learn that we need to start at the end sometimes. So if you go to page 6, wrote it down. Page 6 starts with subpart 2, and you can see again, this is a checklist. So if you already have an application written, if you've already written a draft of your application, or if you typically work off of last year's application, this is a tool that can help you evaluate the application. And so how does it do that? It tells you exactly what should be included in the application, and then has a checkbox and an opportunity for you to have any notes. The order of this application, I'm going to show you the South Carolina narrative momentarily. The order of the questions in some cases is slightly different, but the content of the applications are identical. So South Carolina, I don't know if South Carolina used this application checklist, but South Carolina has all of the necessary components in the checklist. Something else that I like that NDTAC did that I think is just kind of reassurance is they have the application, and then they have the statutory reference for why that section is in the application. So if some of you are sitting there saying, why does South Carolina ask us all these questions? How come we have to have so many of these questions in our application? The answer is because that is the condition of receiving the funding. That's what Congress put into the law. And you can see all of the statutory pieces of it here. And so it's statutory, but it has some of the language we discussed yesterday. So for this one, for example, in this component, as appropriate, a description of the steps participating schools will take to find alternative placements for children and youth interested in continuing their education, but not able to attend a regular public school program. So if that is not appropriate towards your program because everybody is able to attend a regular public school program, then you do not necessarily have to answer that one. The as appropriate has those same conditions for some of them. When it says a description, then it is something that you're required to do. But if it's more, some of those other caveats, as appropriate's in here a couple times. Thought there was another one or two. It might be up in subpart 1 that you can see. NDTAC divided the application in these topic areas. So you can see this one is topic C, transition and support services, and group them this way. Like I said, South Carolina's application might be grouped a little bit differently, but all of the content is there. And so if you've already started your draft of the application, or if you work off of last year's, this is a place that you can start and you can evaluate your application against it and see if there's any missing pieces in it. It's also an opportunity to talk, if you have something and you're not sure about. I'll be circulating as a non-South Carolina Department of Ed employee, although they're friendly, and you can certainly ask them as well if want to look over anything. But or you can ask your table mates, hey, could you look at this? Does this make sense? Does this seem to align and fulfill this part of the application? So you can see there are these requirements. They also then have they have space for any other requirements which the state has. So if there's anything else in the South Carolina application that isn't covered by the other checkboxes, that's because there might be state rules and procedures and guidelines that govern those. Oh, this is the additional considerations here. So the additional considerations are not necessarily requirements, and you can see there's not statutory reference here, but there's options that might enhance an application, which talk about things like formal agreements and needs assessments and so forth. So that's your application checklist. And I started with subpart 2, just scrolling up to subpart 1, the same exact format. So again, you can go through your application. If you have an application that's complete and evaluate it against this, this is a really useful tool, which will get you ready to go when the application opens in GEMS a little bit later. The second tool that is available for you is the Title I Part D application narrative. And although GEMS is not open, the Title I Part D handbook, which is available, and again, everybody has also a hard copy of this, but if you scroll to page 9 of this document, page 9 of this document, I'm going to start with this one. I'll start with subpart 1, but again, you can see the same things here. It has the narrative questions. So although these narrative questions aren't actually in the GEMS, you can just, if you take them into a Word document or a Google Doc so you can share it, you can start completing this. Or if you have something, you can take last year's application, put it into a Word document, and you might update it as needed in each year. And so this gives you the actual question. So if you don't have an application, this might be the place you start. If you have an application, the checklist might be the place that you start, but these two obviously go together. And so as you complete a piece, you'll see there's kind of the same types of questions over in the checklist. And so you can use this to check how you're doing. And again, it's the subpart 1 application narrative. It has questions and subparts, followed directly starting on page 10 here with the subpart 2 application narrative. And you can go through and again, answer these questions, describe it, and follow that same procedure. The third component in the program planning workshop is maybe a little bit different than program planning, but I really like to think in program administration and program planning. You're thinking about your application, you're thinking about your budget, also thinking about monitoring and monitoring documents. In South Carolina, as all states, South Carolina has a monitoring requirements. U.S. Department of Education requires state education agencies to monitor local education agencies. And in the Title I Part D, there's a couple of pieces that I want to point out for monitoring, because this effective program planning is also effective monitoring preparation. And so, and actually, I always I want to appreciate and call out SCDE for this sentence. Monitoring also serves as a mechanism to identify promising practices that include measurables and successful outcomes. And so monitoring is a place to collect that information so that it can be shared. So when a district calls the state and says, hey, do you have any idea who's doing this really well? Monitoring gives us data that we can then share with other districts and really elevate those promising practices, because it's what it is that we want to see. So this monitoring visit, this is also time maybe to look at your application and think about preparing for monitoring. You can see here, and actually I'm going to show you another place where you can find information on monitoring documents in a moment, but you have some documentation that's included with the Title I Part D monitoring. And in case you haven't seen it published in this document, hopefully you have, but the 23-24 monitoring schedule, and the monitoring team is here if you have any questions. These dates are subject to change, and know that things happen and dates get published and they get put out there, and then it doesn't work for a district because of conflict. So the monitoring team's well aware with that and willing to work with you, but these dates are available. I mean, these dates are published, and so you have information on them and can work with this. And the last thing that I wanted to share in terms of monitoring, and you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but if you go to the, and I unfortunately, this is the one that I added, so I don't have a link in the PowerPoint to this, but again, hopefully all of you are familiar with this webpage. This is the South Carolina Department of Education Federal Education Programs webpage, which has a tremendous amount of information. I've been using this and clicking off of here over and over and over again. It's now one of my favorites on my web browser, so it pops up, including Title I Part D is the way to get to some of the elements from Title I Part D. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is a monitoring section here. And included in the monitoring section, again, hopefully this is a reminder for you, there is the monitoring schedule for 23-24, which might not have quite as specific dates, but the monitoring schedule is published. But I really like this, the way that South Carolina has this monitoring sorting tool set up. And so this sorting tool allows you to select your program. And so for this purposes, we're going to select Title I Part D and then go down to the search bar and hit search. And now it pops up all of the different elements of your monitoring protocol and what you should have, including the citation for what you're supposed to have, where it comes from. And you can see here, Edgar's cited, Uniform Guidance is cited, what supporting documentation you should have. So in terms of preparing for monitoring, between this document and the page in the handbook here, it really tells you all of the different documents that you want to have to prepare for the monitoring visit. And so you are ready in advance for that monitoring visit. And I know I'm sharing information, but we have most or all of the monitoring team. I don't know if there's anything else the monitoring team wants to add about preparation for monitoring that I neglected. Yeah, we do have, right, folks in the room, so it's good, easy to do that and have those connections. So what we are going to do for the program planning section is you have kind of 3 tools that I really think all work together to get you set for a solid school year. You've got the checklists where you can evaluate. I should probably start, I don't know, in my head, I like that checklist, but if you're starting from scratch, you'd start with the application and filling out your application. And that might include taking last year's application, dumping it into a Word document, and then comparing it against the checklist and seeing, are there any gaps here? Are there any places where maybe we're not strong yet? We want to do that. So you want to do your application narrative, use your checklist to compare it, and then the monitoring tool kind of brings that all together to prepare and put your monitoring documents together so you can get ready for your monitoring visit. And all of those, depending on where you are in the process, you have the next about hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes to work through those and leave here this afternoon with a tangible asset that you can take home and be ready for a school year. The other piece of this, which I did not explicitly say, but comes out of this morning in your application, is also your budget. So as you're thinking about application narrative, the application narrative asks for more of a description of the budget, but this morning we did the activity with the budget and evaluating your budget items. So you could certainly also add this into this, and your budget certainly going to be a part of your monitoring as well as your personnel, time and effort documentation, and all sorts of fun components like that. And then the last thing is, as much as you can, we've had some work time over the past 2 days, you can use that work time. So the needs assessment activity that we did at the beginning and the various activities that we did, you can build them in, and hopefully they will help you work on your application narrative, your monitoring documents, and kind of pulling it all together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have about an hour and 10, hour 15 minutes, sometime about 2:45, 2:50, we'll come back together for one final opportunity to get together and see if there's any final questions that we have. But for the next hour and 10 minutes, this is your time to work on your application narrative. Again, I will be circulating, glad to sit in with you, answer any questions, help things out, and use all of those materials. And all of the SCDE folks are here as well, and glad to assist as well if you have questions. Any just general questions? All right, I'm going to leave you to get started then. I'm not leaving. I'm leaving the podium, but I will be here.